Well, a former budding star is now on the verge of getting cut. This day two pick from a couple years ago is now looking to be on the outskirts of the 53-man roster. In what has been a surprising preseason so far, all that and more on this video. What's going on? It's Elijah from Sports Talk Indy, where we cover all things Colts every single day. And if you haven't already known or haven't listened to the murmurs, there's a guy who was widely projected to be tight end one coming out of training camp and coming out of this offseason that now is looking to potentially be the guy who's on the outside looking in. And this is Galani Woods. Galani Woods, who, if you've been watching for any amount of time, you know that I'm a massive fan of, has not been what we hoped he would be. And obviously, injuries have derailed his career, but even with a struggling Matt Ryan a few years ago, Jelani Woods had an absolutely outstanding performance in several games in his first year. And last year, obviously, had the hamstring injury. And then we saw the videos coming out of this offseason of some of the things that he was able to do, some of the feats he was able to bring, and really the demonstration of strength that we saw from him. And if you were like me, you were looking at this as a sign that this is going to be the guy. This is going to be the absolute playmaker. He had the number one RAS score at the time of any Colts player, now obviously only topped by Anthony Richardson. But both of them registered an RAS score, which is the relative athletic score, basically just looking at your basic traits of speed, strength, size. He rated a 10.0, which was at the time extraordinarily unheard of. But he showed up and he did great his first season. Obviously had a few injuries, was kind of off and on, but we really thought second year was going to be it. Then second year comes around. He has a hamstring injury. As soon as he was about to come back, he has another injury that plagued him for the entirety of his second season. So then if you were like me, you're like, well, this is the year. This is the bounce back year. This is the rebound. This is where it all comes in. And then now we're looking at him in preseason, and he just hasn't been there. Now, you combine all that with some of the other tight ends who have been actually extraordinarily good in this preseason. But we're pulling this report from the Horseshoe Heroes, and obviously this isn't specifically just from them. This has been something that's been talked about widely over the past couple weeks. But as we're approaching the end of preseason, it definitely seems as though it's time to start making projections of who's going to make the 53-man roster. And there's a lot of guys with a lot of unknowns. We're going to cover a lot more of those throughout this video. But the first one we're talking about is obviously Jelani Woods. Jelani Woods, who had the highest RAS score ever for a tight end when he was picked out of Virginia, was one of 4 tight ends Indianapolis drafted in a 3-year period. We're pulling this report right here. Granson, Drew, Ogletree, Will Mallory, and obviously Jelani Woods. Indianapolis drafted in a 3-year period alongside former basketball player Mo Alley Cox. Depth is not an issue at this position for the Colts. The depth might work against Woods in 2024. After missing the entire 2023 season due to injury, the emergence of Granson and the depth behind him could make it even more difficult for the Colts to justify keeping him on the roster. Even some of the beat writers are starting to feel as though Woods could be cut loose. James Boyd, who we love here at Sports Talk Indy of The Athletic, left Woods off his initial 53-man roster projections. Nothing that he hasn't done anything to separate himself from the pack. Boyd also claimed that the first team reps have been hard to come by for Woods, placing yet another obstacle in his path. And we're going to go over that James Boyd 53-man roster here in just a moment. But I think it's important to note that one of the difficulties for Jelani Woods, like this report says, is the fact that the Colts have actually really good depth in this position. Kylan Granson looks really good. Obviously, Mo Alley Cox has been actually more than consistent. And he was one that before training camp opened, before the preseason, I had projected Mo Alley Cox to be the cut candidate. I did not expect Jelani Woods to not really have this opportunity. But Jelani Woods hasn't gotten a lot of first-team reps. He's not really shown a lot of impressive things in training camp or the preseason. So I would not be shocked to see him left off, especially with guys like Ogletree, Mallory, and Granson really, really coming and budding and being the fantastic tight end candidates to merge. And you want consistency. You want consistency when you've got a young quarterback who's just starting up. You want guys who are not going to be injured, who are not going to do this. And although it's tough to gauge a guy and to say that he's not going to be on a team based specifically on injuries isn't exactly fair, It's kind of the business of the NFL. And if a guy is really struggling to stay healthy, unfortunately, it means that this could be the cut candidate. But now that leads us into the second part of this video, which is who else is projected to be left off this list. And I think there's some that are going to surprise you. So let's cover this. It's obviously James Boyd of The Athletic. And let's going to start at quarterback, right? No surprises here. Quarterbacks Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco will stay. Now he has Sam Ehlinger, Kedon Slovis, and Jason Bean being left off. Jason Bean obviously had the rough start, but then was really slinging it in the preseason game. Obviously, you need 3 quarterbacks here, and I think that it's going to be tough. Sam Ehlinger is Mr. August, right? I mean, the guy is to preseason what Tom Brady is to the postseason, what Patrick Mahomes is in any clutch situation. But unfortunately, that doesn't translate into regular season play. So I'd be surprised to see where they go here. Obviously, when you get rookies, you get a brand new contract. You get a brand new everything. Sam Ehlinger is on the last year of his deal, as is Joe Flacco. So it'd be interesting to see where the Colts go with this. You kind of like those guys who are kind of system backups, guys that have been in a system for a long time, who understand the role and who are able to be there in case of emergency. So the next one, not really a lot of surprises here. In the running back division, you've got Jonathan Taylor, Trey Sermon, Evan Hull, who's actually gotten a majority of the load the past couple days in joint practices. Evan Hull's actually been surprising already, and Tyler Goodson. Tyler Goodson has had kind of an off and on career so far, but Trey Sermon obviously is kind of locking in that RB2 spot as long as he's able to stay healthy past that hamstring injury. Wide receivers, no surprises here for the most part. You've got Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, Adonai Mitchell, Ashton Dulin, and Anthony Gould. Now, who is out? Tyree Cleveland, Ethan Fournier, who's already been cut, DJ Montgomery, Juwan Winfrey, who had a really good catch, and then Laquan Treadwell. Now, here's where he brings in the tight ends, which we just covered. In would be Mo Alley-Cox at tight end 1, Kylan Granson tight end 2, Will Mallory and Drew Ogletree off the bench. And then out would be Galani Woods, Jordan Murray, and Eric Tomlinson. Moving on down, offensive lineman. We're not going to go over all that's in just because there's a lot, but there are some surprising outs. Danny Pinter being the top of this, Wesley French, another surprising one, Josh Sills, Jake Witt. I'm surprised to see Jake Witt on here, but he's not really had that impressive of a offseason so far. Ryan Cole, and then obviously, like I said, Wesley French, which is a little bit surprising. I hate to see him not line up next to Fries because I loved the French fry combo that we had for those couple years. Now, here's where I really thought this was surprising, and I would really love to check back on this report after the 53-man cuts because you have in defensive linemen, obviously no surprises, Deo Adengbo, Leo Latu, Tavon Bryan, who keep an eye on this name. He is already starting to do some really cool stuff. I cannot pronounce this guy's name to save the life of me, but you see this name right here. He's already showing up already in the joint practices, and Tyquan Lewis. And then this is a name, another name to keep your eye on as the season emerges, and that's Isaiah Land. Now, here's the surprising ones. To cut Samson Ebukam, Roquan Davis, Nard Avery, Titus Leo, Eric Johnson, and Jonah Lealu. Now, I'm surprised to see Jonah Lealu on here. This is a guy who was a position switch kind of from college out of Oklahoma. But then you see Roquan Davis, who they just signed. You guys got guys coming up and chomping at the bit like Isaiah Land and Roquan Davis being held out with the blood pressure issues, and Ebukam out for the rest of the year with that torn Achilles. It's tough to justify keeping these guys on a roster for another season. Linebackers. No surprise, Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, Sigan Alubi, Grant Stewart, and Jalen Carleys, who is back from that injury that held him out for the past 6 practices. He's already looking good. He had an interception against a backup yesterday in the joint practices. But you got Austin, Jake, Liam Anderson, Cameron McGrone, and Craig Young all being cut. Cornerbacks. These are the interesting ones. You've got Kenny Moore, Juju Brents, Jalen Jones, Dallas Flowers, who had a bounce-back game today, Dalen Simpson, and Micah Abraham. These are 2 rookies who I'm really excited to see get some playing time. And then out would be Darrell Baker, Clay Fields, who suffered an injury, Chris Lamons, and Amir Speed. These are the safeties that we're talking about today. The in would be Julian Blackman, Nick Cross, Rodney Thomas, Ronnie Harrison, and Trevor Denbo. And then out would be Kendall Brooks, who's already actually been cut, Marcel Debo, Daniel Scott, and Michael Tutsi. Daniel Scott obviously being the one who had another injury. Just again, just hard to justify keeping him. Maybe they'll bring him on the practice squad to be able to bring him back. But a very interesting Kendall Brooks being one that I definitely thought would be one that we'd want to see more of, but it is what it is. And then special teams, you've got Rigoberto Sanchez, Matt Gay, and then the only out would be Spencer Schrader. So that is coming from James Boyd of The Athletic, and that is who we're looking at. Who are the ins and the outs? And again, nothing's definite. I definitely think, judging based on what we've seen so far in this offseason and in this training camp, especially after one preseason game and two joint practices, I like this list. I think this list is really good. There are some surprises, Roquan Davis being a big one because he was the Colts' only signing outside of Joe Flacco. That was a non-Colt last year for 2 year, $14 million. They didn't get him, or it's not, really working out. And you guys got guys chomping at the bit to come up. It's definitely hard to justify keeping a $7 million roster expense. So those are the list. The big news, obviously, is Galani Woods likely not going to be making the cut this year, and we'll see where he ends up and if he's able to really grow and bud into something past these injuries. Don't forget to subscribe and like and be a part of this. We're going to be covering all things Colts every single day as we continue into the beginning of this new season.